Tuesday. It's still going to feel on the cool side, particularly on the east coast with the breeze coming from the North Sea. But I think with a lighter wind and with more sunshine, it's going to feel pleasant enough. 15 or 16 in the south, 8 to 9 on the east coast of Scotland and eastern England. Now into Wednesday nights, more lengthy clear spells and lighter winds again. So I think a more widespread frost, still in places like Cardiff, London, Southampton, 6 or 7 degrees. But in sheltered spots, away from urban centres, those temperatures getting close to, if not below freezing. So a frost on Thursday morning, but another dry and bright start to the day. Another fine day for the vast majority. Just some rain drifting past the Northern Isles there. Otherwise, for much of the country, it's sunny spells, some cloud floating by. And for Friday, a bit more cloud in the sky, but Saturday the sunshine returns, particularly in the southern half of the UK.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as senior Labour frontbencher Lisa Nandy calls out Keir Starmer's Partygate obsession, will this be enough to make the leader of no opposition finally see sense and realise just how much damage he's doing to the country? I'll explore in my digest before getting the verdict of my superstar panel, former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Are the woke determined to take down Churchill to prove that no one is beyond cancellation? Well, Madness of Crowds author Douglas Murray has been investigating why the West's achievements are being dismissed as an embarrassment committed by, quote, dead white males. He'll reveal his findings from his new book, The War on the West, which has been described as the most important of the year at 10:20. As Netflix loses 200,000 subscribers thanks to its woke content, could we be witnessing the start of a renaissance for un-PC entertainment like this?
People that come to Yarmouth are salt of the earth. I think it's fantastic to come here, all the tattoos and people rolling their own fags, brilliant. And then the blokes as well.
Oh, he's very naughty. Jim Davidson, who's launched a streaming service for the comedy people used to love. He'll be here and uncancelled at 10:40. As screeching lefties like Jamila Jamil and Trump nemesis Kathy Griffin have a catatonic meltdown over Elon Musk's £35 billion purchase, has he already made Twitter a more tolerable and tolerant place? Well, Nigel Farage weighs in on the deal that could save free speech at 9:30 and He'll weigh in on whether Trump is about to rejoin the platform. After Thomas Markle revealed in a world-exclusive interview with me last night that he's coming to celebrate the Queen, should Harry and Meghan also return to the UK for the Platinum Jubilee? I've got a royally good lineup to respond to that bombshell tonight. Royal biographer Lady Colin Campbell, Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl, and designer David Emmanuel, the man behind Princess Diana's iconic wedding dress. We'll get their verdict as well as yours at 9:20. As the media delight in having torn down Rishi Sunak as popularity polls show he's dead last among the cabinet, is his political career really over? Well, Darren Grimes thinks not, and he'll explain why we shouldn't count out the Chancellor just yet in The Outsider at 9:45. In the wake of the Angela Rayner Basic Instinct row, should MPs who are found guilty of misogyny be suspended, as proposed by Harriet Harman? We'll debate that at 10:30. Is David Cameron right to accuse Muslim groups who criticise the Prevent programme of, quote, enabling terrorism? And would you say yes to a train station proposal? All aboard the Media Buzz for those debates and more at 10 p.m. Don't forget, I'll also bring you a first look at the newspapers as they land and crown a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the night is up. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though, and I hope you will forgive me tonight for taking just one moment to get personal, because today it's actually one of the greatest days of my life because I became an uncle for the first time. My gorgeous niece, named Ivy Dan, yep, you heard that right, her middle name is Dan, after me, I'm so excited, was born at 11:20 a.m. our time after a trying 5-day labour by my wonderful sister Ashley, and an even more difficult pregnancy. So I cannot tell you tonight how proud I am of my sister, and I wanted to share that with everyone. So as I say, thank you for giving me that opportunity. But this is such a big moment for my family. Now, on to the show. A withering digest on why Keir Starmer's own front benchers are now turning against him over his Partygate obsession in just a moment. And then my superstar panel join me. Let's take a first look at them. Tonight, the former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the political editor at the Sunday Mirror, who's actually been with Keir Starmer over the past few days, Nigel Nelson. But first, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. A man arrested on suspicion of the kidnap of Katie Kenyon has today been further arrested on suspicion of her murder. Lancashire police say that although Katie hasn't yet been found, they're now working on the basis that she is no longer alive. The 33-year-old woman from Burnley hasn't been seen since last Friday morning. Overseas, the US has welcomed Germany's decision to send heavy weapons to Ukraine for the very first time. Speaking from an airbase in Germany, the US Defence Secretary said NATO leaders will now meet monthly to intensify their support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, here the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says it's important not to be distracted by Russia's nuclear threats, and saying that she's determined to work with the Allies to rebuild Ukraine.
For too long, there was a false distinction between defensive and offensive weapons. It became an excuse for some to drag their feet. That time has now passed. NATO allies are clear that we are delivering heavy weapons to Ukraine. That's what the Ukrainians need to halt the latest Russian initiative and regain control of their territory.
Liz Truss. Well, President Putin has agreed in principle to let the UN and the Red Cross be involved in the evacuation of civilians from the Azovstal plant in Ukraine's Mariupol. The United Nations released a statement after the Russian president met with the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres in Moscow. A senior government source says the Prime Minister has threatened to privatise the Passport Office unless it clears its backlog of applications. Boris Johnson is said to be horrified that families simply wanting to go on summer holidays are now under pressure to pay up to £100 extra to fast-track their applications because of the delays. The number of children in the UK with hepatitis has risen now to 114, according to figures from the World Health Organization. 10 children have needed a liver transplant. The UK Health Security Agency says most of the cases of liver inflammation are in children under the age of 5, and experts are still trying to understand the cause in the spike of hepatitis in children. Downing Street has stressed the need for Twitter to remain responsible and protect users from harm. That comes as the platform's founder welcomes a £34.5 billion takeover of the company by the world's richest man, Elon Musk. The Tesla boss says he wants Twitter to be a platform for free speech. And the tennis star Novak Djokovic will be able to defend his Wimbledon Championship title this year. It comes after the All England club confirmed players won't need to have had a COVID vaccination to compete. The world number one has only been able to play 3 tournaments so far this year due to those restrictions. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Now here's Dan Wootton tonight.
So as you know, for many months, and especially the past few weeks, I've been pleading with the political and media class in this country, especially Mr. Quiff himself, Keir Starmer, to focus on what really matters to Brits. Any true patriot would not continue to push for political paralysis over months-old Partygate revelations with a focus on whether a damned cake was removed from a Tupperware container in the middle of 2020, for God's sake. No, any politician who wanted the best for Britain would have a laser focus on what really matters to the vast majority of voters: the cost of living crisis. Today, Boris Johnson did exactly what the PM should be doing. He banged cabinet heads together and demanded his ministers provide a concrete battle plan on easing that growing predicament. Well, in a delicious piece of irony, I never thought the senior politician who would agree with me that Starmer's Partygate obsession is deeply damaging, not only to the country, but to Labour's electoral prospects, would be his very own senior front bencher. But credit to Shadow Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Lisa Nandy, who has finally privately called out Starmer for his nonsense. More on that in just a moment. But for anyone who doubts that Starmer and Labour aren't completely and utterly obsessed with Partygate, let me just remind you of the past few days.
Even now, as the latest mealy-mouthed apology stumbles out of one side of his mouth, a new set of deflections and distortions pour from the other. If the Prime Minister had any respect for John and the millions like him who sacrificed everything to follow the rules, he'd resign. Why did the Prime Minister's press secretary, Allegra Stratton, have to resign from her job? Why does the Prime Minister think everybody else's actions have consequences except his own? Does the Prime Minister actually accept that he broke the law? How can the Prime Minister claim to be a patriot when he deliberately attacks and degrades the institutions of our great country?
Why are you focusing relentlessly on parties?
Well, I want to talk about the cost of living, and I'm very happy to talk about the cost of living. Yeah. Well, as I say, why were we in Parliament on Tuesday with the Prime Minister? Because he got a crime. He got a fine.
This will damage our democracy if the Prime Minister is seen to have broken his own laws and get away with it. This isn't just about him breaking his rules. This is about a Prime Minister in office breaking his rules and then trying to lie to the public and lie to Parliament and get away with it.
Why do we need another investigation?
Well, again, months and months of the Prime Minister just trying to say nothing to see here, let's move on, are we all bored of Partygate? It's not just about him breaking his rules. He broke his rules and then tried to get away with it and lie to Parliament and lie to the British public. It's pretty clear he did mislead Parliament. It's pretty astounding that he thinks he can say there was no parties when he's found out these parties. This is outrageous. We didn't know there was parties going on. Then when he was found out to have been at the parties, he's saying, I didn't know it was a party.
It was a bit of cake
it's
in
ridiculous.
a Tupperware box.
It's not a bit of cake in the Tupperware box.
He cannot have come to Parliament and truthfully said that no parties had taken place and no rules had been broken. So therefore, he's breached the ministerial code. It's his code. He's judge and jury about it. If he's broken the ministerial code, what is he going to do about it? He should resign.
Hashtag obsessed. And it is this obsession from Starmer that has resulted in yet another Labour Party behind-the-scenes civil war. So according to today's Daily Mail, his frontbencher, Lisa Nandy, in respect to her, she warned Starmer he risks looking out of touch if the party continues to put lockdown rule breaches above pocketbook issues. The Wigan MP raised her concerns during a shadow cabinet meeting last week, the newspaper reported. But Starmer won't listen. He's an Islington member of the champagne-swilling metropolitan elite, which wants to bring Boris Johnson down at almost any cost, with the added bonus of putting Brexit at threat. But voters, who are rightly angry about the lockdown rule breaks, just like I was, by the way, but we're wise to what really matters and are becoming sick of this never-ending and exhausting farce. For once, Lisa Nandy was completely right. The chance of Starmer seeing sense? I say zero. He marches to the beat of the BBC's drum on this issue. To respond now, my superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the political editor at the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson. Calvin Robinson, they are obsessed.
Yes, and for a reason. The mainstream media and the political left are combining together for a coordinated attack against the Prime Minister and against the people, the very people of this country. Because what this is about it's about Brexit. And the goal of Keir Starmer to stand there and call Boris Johnson, say he's not a patriot, of all people to talk about patriotism, the cheek of it. He's doing everything he can to reverse patriotism and democracy in this country.
Nigel Nelson, Keir Starmer has sat down with you over the past few days. I presume he spent 99% of the interview talking about Partygate?
No. He spent the first half of it talking about his emergency budget and the cost of living crisis, which is what appeared in the Sunday Mirror on Sunday.
So why does he never talk about that in public?
Well, he does. If you showed the interview from the BBC wouldn't actually listen to that bit, that he was constantly trying to plug his emergency budget in that interview. And Sophie Rayworth wasn't actually paying any attention to it. She was keeping him on Partygate. So he wanted to talk...
Yes, we know the BBC. The only people, I would say, who are more obsessed with Partygate than Starmer are the folk at the BBC.
So what he really wanted to talk about was the emergency budget. What he thinks is the way to deal with the cost of living crisis is to, one, try and claw back the 11.8 billion that we've lost in fraud and error in COVID payments. That would pay for the national insurance increase, which he would scrap. He would put a tax on the oil and gas producers, which would mean our energy bills could go down by up to £600. He'd reduce business rates by putting a tax on the online giants. Now, those, to me, sound like quite big ideas.
But Nigel, like the moments that matter, the moments that count, and I just produced the receipts in Parliament last week, he didn't raise the cost of living crisis at all.
No, but as
he was obsessed
as explained in the clip, he was actually there to talk about Partygate. So if you go back to last week's
debate... Well, at PMQs he could have spoken about whatever he wanted.
He could indeed, but he was still following up on what was going on Tuesday. So Boris Johnson now sits down with his cabinet and has a pub quiz to come up with a few little ideas, like perhaps we'll make MOTs every 2 years than one, perhaps we can get childminders to look after more children. That's hardly what you call big ideas.
OK, Lisa Nandy has a point, though. Forget what Boris has done. Lisa Nandy was right, wasn't she, in this shadow cabinet? Labour at the moment risks looking like they are obsessed with Partygate and that they don't care about cost of living. Do you concede she was right?
Well, the point basically about Partygate is that you're talking about a law-breaking Prime Minister and who won't resign, and therefore we are heading towards a pretty major constitutional crisis. It's really serious.
I don't think we are.
The crime isn't serious. Would you say should have resigned if he got a parking ticket, for example?
No, because I don't think a parking ticket is the same as a rule that he has made.
Well, he
then
sets
goes
the parking laws fundamentally of the country. If he wanted to scrap all parking law fines,
well, he doesn't set the parking laws. And no, I don't think parking ticket is the same as this. This was
Speed
something he
limit.
imposed on the nation. Everyone had to go along with it, and
We all broke it.
Well, I didn't break it.
I did.
Well, then maybe you should actually turn yourself into the police. And,
I did too. Come and get me. Come and bloody get me. Dawn Neeson, I'm interested to know what you think about this, because you have been very angry and you've remained angry, and I understand why. But when you see Starmer and this obsession, do you start to agree with me?
Well, it's very... I'm never going to agree with you, Dan, don't be silly.
And we don't want that on the show.
No. It's very interesting listening to what Nigel's just said and watching the clips that you put together, because, I mean, yeah, what Nigel's just said, Keir's plans sound like common sense to most of us, but we don't know them, because all we ever get when he's standing up in Parliament is Partygate and cakes. And, you know, the sheer gall of a man who never argued against lockdown as well. I mean, that appalling story he came out with by that poor man who couldn't be with his dying loved ones because of the rules. Rules that Keir Starmer wanted to make harder and longer and tougher. He never, ever said that at the time. So the hypocrisy of him complaining about people who are kept away from their loved ones, mate, you could have said something about that, but you didn't. So I'm still angry with Boris.
he wasn't complaining about the rules. He was complaining about the man who made the rules breaking them.
Yeah, but he could have. He never stood up and said, these rules are not right, and he should have done that. That's what I'm angry about.
He does believe they're right. I mean, I actually think, Dawn, that's one of the most disturbing things for me about Starmer, the fact that he says it was still right for fathers to miss the birth of their children.
Absolutely.
For people to die alone, for folk to miss their close relatives' funerals. Starmer still believes that was right. I mean, I can't comprehend that. Yeah, no, I can't comprehend that either.
Well, no, I mean, most sensible people, as I think you were alluding to, Calvin, realise that most of the rules were nonsensical. And
But they weren't nonsensical.
They were completely nonsensical.
Nigel,
Nigel, is there any... Looking back at the past 2 years, and everything we now know, do you genuinely still believe that it is ever appropriate to let someone die alone and to physically lock their husband or wife or their children outside the hospital? Do you believe that that is right now, looking back?
I think it was an awful thing to happen, but we did need to have lockdown and the kind of lockdowns that we had. And when
OK, so you do think that's right, then?
Yes, I do think it's right. I mean, it's right we had lockdown, and those are the consequences.
At the very beginning, when we didn't know what we were dealing with, but as it went on over 2 years, we realised...
It's morally reprehensible.
When Calvin was talking about the evidence is in all the graphs you can see that when we have lockdown, the infections go like that.
We're not going to have the lockdown debate, because I did it for 30 minutes with Matt Hancock last week, and I know you're all feeling bored about it. But the reason I raise it is because I think Starmer has this very wrong. Nigel Nelson, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson, my superstar panel. They're not going anywhere. They are here for the entire evening. But also coming up, as the censorious left goes into meltdown over Elon Musk's £35 billion purchase of Twitter, has the tech genius already made the social media platform a more tolerable and tolerant place? Well, Nigel Farage weighs in on the deal that could save free speech at 9:30. But up next in the clash, after Thomas Markle revealed in his world-exclusive interview with me last night that he's jetting into the UK for the Platinum Jubilee, should Harry and Meghan follow him here? Well, to respond to that bombshell, royal biographer Lady Colin Campbell, Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl, and designer David Emmanuel, the man behind Princess Diana's iconic wedding dress, will get their verdict as well as yours. What do you reckon on this? Do you want Harry and Meghan back in the country? But maybe we want them here for the Queen, not for us. Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet me at gbnews. We've got a poll running there too. The results coming up after the break.
Hello again. Clearing skies overnight will lead to a touch of frost in some places, but after that chilly start, actually Wednesday's looking mostly dry and bright once again, because high pressure is here and it's here to stay for some time. It's building in from the north. Now that means, because winds rotate around high pressure in a clockwise direction. We're seeing an easterly airflow, but actually the isobars are opening out at the same time, so those winds are falling lighter, and we're going to see the cloud mostly fade away overnight. Still some patches remaining, drifting south across the Midlands, East Anglia in the southeast, some across western Scotland. But where we see those clear spells for, say, northern England, for much of Scotland, some sheltered spots will get just below freezing. Otherwise, typical numbers first thing Wednesday morning will be 4 to 7 degrees. So chilly start, that frost around first thing, but quite quickly it'll warm up. The sun will get to work. And it's looking much sunnier for northern and eastern England, for much of eastern Scotland compared to Tuesday. It's still going to feel on the cool side, particularly on the east coast with the breeze coming from the North Sea. But I think with a lighter wind and with more sunshine, it's going to feel pleasant enough. 15 or 16 in the south, 8 to 9 on the east coast of Scotland and eastern England. Now into Wednesday nights, more lengthy clear spells and lighter winds again. So I think a more widespread frost, still in places like Cardiff, London, Southampton, 6 or 7 degrees. But in sheltered spots away from urban centres, those temperatures getting close to, if not below freezing. So a frost on Thursday morning, but another dry and bright start to the day. Another fine day for the vast majority. Just some rain drifting past the Northern Isles there. Otherwise, for much of the country, it's sunny spells, some cloud floating by. And for Friday, a bit more cloud in the sky, but Saturday the sunshine returns, particularly in the southern half of the UK.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GBNews.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray are still to come, but now the clash. My world exclusive interview with Thomas Markle has been making international headlines all day over Meghan's dad's bombshell announcement that he will be heading to the UK for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and even calling out Harry's security concern double standards.
I'm going to show my respects for the Queen, and I'm going to make sure that the Queen understands that my entire family respects the Queen and the royals, and we admire them, and we want them to know that's how we feel about them, and that's how we feel about England. He knows how much security they're going to have. So, I mean, he's totally safe in that situation, and my God, he's going off to the games which would be far more dangerous for him than to be at the Jubilee. So I don't understand half the things he says.
Thomas was spot on there. Hurry's utter hypocrisy in refusing to attend the Jubilee, which will be one of the most secure events in Britain, when he had no issue biking around the Invictus Games, tells you all you need to know. So with Thomas prepared to travel across the world to pay his respects to Her Majesty and the royal family, should Harry and Meghan stop being busy children and return to the UK for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee? What do you think on this? Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews. We've got our Twitter poll running there too. The results coming up soon. But to help you make your mind up, a fabulous royal panel tonight. The royal author and socialite Lady C, Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl, and Princess Diana's wedding dress designer David Emmanuel. Katie Nicholl, what do you reckon? Do they have to return for this? It might be their last opportunity to be at a major event with the Queen.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're sensible, which is a big if, I think they.
They're not. They're not.
Well, I think they will. I think they will come over. I mean, let's not forget, Dan, that their greatest currency is their connection with the royal family. I think it's going to look very strange, particularly to the Americans. I've just been lecturing over in the States, and I think it's going to be very, very strange if they're not there in some capacity. We're not expecting them to be there in an official capacity or representing the Queen, but I think given this is going to be her, let's be honest, final hurrah. This is a Platinum Jubilee celebration, the likes of which we've never seen celebrated in this country before. You don't want the two anomalies being the Sussexes. I think my understanding is that the Queen wants all of her family there, whether that's a balcony appearance or however it's going to be. And I think if Harry and Meghan are not there, I think they're going to regret it, on top of regrets of not going to Prince Philip's service of Thanksgiving. And I think it's going to look very strange indeed.
David Emmanuel, it was interesting to see that interview with Prince Harry last week on NBC's Today Show, talking about Princess Diana, talking about the fact that he's felt her presence in his life much more over the past 2 years. Now, you knew Princess Diana incredibly well. There's no way she would have wanted her youngest son to be estranged from her
Of course not. No, absolutely. She was very caring and adored her boys. And I think it would be a very different world had she been alive right now. I don't think most of this would have happened. But I think going back to your question, are they attending? Well, the first question surely should be, are they invited? Now, knowing Her Majesty the Queen, she loves her children and her grandchildren. I think she would want them there if they're invited. And if they're invited, they'd be very silly not to attend, I think, because, you know, this would be the perfect opportunity to put away all the family troubles and the strife and all get together behind closed doors. Look, he's adoringly kissing her. He adores his grandmother. And I think, you know what has happened here, that it hasn't been very great, that the public relations, this is from the very beginning, when they left. And then they were stripped of their titles, and they went to live in California, and all that nonsense, and who's paying for their security. Forget all that. Get together. The Queen has got 2 grandchildren she hasn't seen. You know, I think it would be a bit of a circus if they brought the children. But saying that, I should imagine Her Majesty the Queen would want them there.
Lady C, I'd heard for some time that there is a genuine fear from Prince Harry and Meghan that they might be booed by the British public, and that might be one reason why they don't want to be here at such a major event with tens of thousands of people surrounding them.
Well, that would be one of the few evidences of realism that they have shown in the recent past, with due respect, because I think there's a very good chance that they will be booed. And I also think that this is not only going to be a family affair, this is actually a state occasion. And let us remember, we are not celebrating Granny's 96th birthday for the Jubilee. We are celebrating the Queen's accession to the throne. So it is not a family matter. It is rarely, in fact, a state occasion. And I have concerns about Harry and Meghan appearing, not only because of the reception they'll get, not only because they managed to suck all oxygen out of a room and turn it into the Harry and Meghan dog and pony show. But
with Netflix cameras following.
Also, because the fact of the matter is that the British public don't want them. I have received tens of thousands of communications from the public saying they don't want Harry and Meghan to be on that balcony because they resent the fact that Harry and Meghan abused them, the British people, by lying and saying that the British people were racist and that the British people didn't welcome her. So I think the palace need to consider that aspect as well. And I think just because you love somebody who misbehaves doesn't mean that you have to accept and tolerate and condone the bad behavior. You can love the criminal and hate the crime.
Yeah,
I mean, Dan, every family have these little quarrels, right? Ask any family around the country, and of course, I think what this has brought up, it's divided the country. I should imagine hugely, because but I think there are ways around this.
David, I would never turn on my father or my brother,
right?
On the way that Harry and Meghan have turned on their parents and their siblings. I would never do that. And I think a lot of people feel like that.
Let's say you had a quarrel with your mother. Let's say you had a quarrel with your grandmother and it was a special birthday, a special event. Would you fly back to New Zealand? I think you would.
Yes, but I would never have that quarrel. I mean, that's the point. And I think, David, what's happened, because you remember what Diana used to be like, what's happened is that Meghan has come in and caused this chaos amongst the family. And the problem is that now, David, Prince Charles and Prince William don't trust the fact that if they have a private conversation with Prince Harry, that Prince Harry isn't going to tell Meghan, and that then Meghan isn't going to call up that little weird bloke Omid Scobie or a US TV anchor and pass it all on. So there are genuine difficulties, you know.
I think there's an opportunity here to get together behind closed doors, whether they're on the balcony or not. And I think this probably would be the last chance.
OK, Katie, come in.
The point I was going to make, which I think also goes back to Prince Andrew being at the service of Thanksgiving. I mean, my personal feeling about that was that it wasn't the right thing to do. The optics weren't great. But the message behind that, clearly William and Charles, we know, thought the same thing. But the Queen made the decision to have Andrew escort her up to the altar. The Queen has made the decision to extend an invite to the Sussexes. So, Lady C, I get the point you're making about the public, and I get a lot of what you get in letters on my Instagram feed and on my Twitter. People don't want them coming back here. But I think in a way, that's all irrelevant. It is a state occasion to a degree, but this is about the Queen. She is calling the shots for her Jubilee. She wants her family here. And at the end of the day, if the royal family isn't united and at least seen to be united, does it really have a future? Because the future of the royal family is something that we're going to be talking about a lot, Dan, I suspect.
Well, indeed.
Over the weeks and months.
Lady C, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. The royal family has a future if it stands on principle. And I'm afraid it doesn't stand very effectively on principle if it ignores the fact that the vast percentage of the people of this country feel offended that her grandson told lies about them. And I'm sorry, I don't agree with you, Katie, with due respect. I think that this is far bigger than just granny and grandson. And I really think that she should factor the feelings of the tens of thousands of people who aren't only communicating with us, but writing into the palace.
So do you think then the Buckingham Palace should then uninvite them?
How do you know they were actually asked? Have she said they were asked? I mean,
I don't think they're not going to fly over and just turn up like tourists, are they? The only reason they're coming, presumably, because they've been invited.
Well, have they said they're coming?
No, Harry has said that there are security concerns. I mean, Katie, what are you hearing? When I listened to that interview, it certainly sounded like Prince Harry was preparing the ground to say, sorry, we can't come, security issues.
I think the security issues you will find are magically smoothed out, although it's going to take a fair dose of magic, because as Lady C has commented, if people are not happy and Harry will only come over here when he's guaranteed royal security protection, which we know is funded by the taxpayer, that could see them booed in the streets. People really may say, actually, you know what, if he comes over, fine, but they need to be paying for their own security. Well, Harry's already said his security isn't equipped to deal with the situations that could arise over here. It has to be royal security. I think all of these talking points signal that if the Sussexes do come over, and I think there's every chance they will, there is also every chance that it could overshadow a 4-day event.
They deserve to be booed.
Should be about the Queen.
They deserve to be booed. I know it's not the British thing, but they do deserve it. Lady C, I just want to ask you quickly about Thomas Markle making the decision to travel to London for the Platinum Jubilee. He wants to pay tribute to the Queen, but he does also want to meet with Prince Charles. Do you think he should be granted a royal audience?
I think he should certainly be granted an audience with someone. I think he should be extended the courtesies and the honour that his ex-wife was and that the Middletons have been. And let us remember that Thomas Markle's offence, in quotes, was a very minor one. He was trying to preserve his dignity, and he has never said anything adverse about any member of the royal family. He has simply said he loves his daughter and he wants his daughter to get in touch with him. Yes. And I have a great deal of compassion for Thomas Markle because he is King Lear to Meghan's Gonorrhegan. He's the ideal combination of those two thankless daughters, Regan and Gonorrhea.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to when I learnt my Shakespeare. I think I know where you're coming from. Lady C, the royal author and socialite, Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl, and Princess Diana's wedding dress designer David Emmanuel. Pleasure to have all three of you here. So who do you agree with on this? Well, Hanley on Twitter says, no, they flipping well shouldn't. That would be hypocritical in the extreme, given just how much they have trashed our royal family over the last year. From Greg, Harry can come on his own. It is his granny, and it's the right thing to do. His nefarious, narcissistic, self-pitying other half, on the other hand, well, she can stay away. If that means he doesn't come, then so be it. And from Sean, if he didn't turn up for his grandfather's memorial, then he shouldn't turn up to his grandmother's Jubilee. But it's OK for him and Meghan to go to the Super Bowl matches and a rodeo in Texas. Your verdict now in. Lady C was right on this. It looked like just 15% of you agree that Harry and Meghan should return to the UK for the Queen's Jubilee. 85% of you want them to stay in that Montecito mansion. Coming up, as popularity polls show Rishi Sunak is dead last among the cabinet, is his political career really over? Well, Darren Grimes certainly doesn't think so. He'll give his take on that in The Outsider soon. But first, after screeching lefties like Jamila Jamil and Trump nemesis Kathy Griffin have a catatonic meltdown, has Elon Musk already made Twitter a more tolerable place in the wake of his £35 billion takeover? Nigel Farage weighs in on the deal to save free speech next.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Darren Grimes and Douglas Murray coming up, but time for What the Farage. Now, the incredible news that Elon Musk has bought Twitter for $44 billion in a bid to reinstate free speech has been met with its biggest endorsement possible. It's sending the woke liberal elite into utter meltdown. The Tesla billionaire has vowed to let everyone say whatever they want on his social network as long as they can prove they are not bots. And he's even expected to reinstate banned users, including Donald Trump. And it's not gone down well with Twitter's army of censors. Staff members working from home across San Francisco's poshest suburbs. They've reacted with emotional breakdowns, apparently. Then there's the army of so-called Twitter celebs, a bizarre group of privileged people who believe you should only be accepted online if you sign up to their politically correct worldview. I'll shed no tears over the departure of the deeply unpleasant woke-topian Jamila Jamil, who vowed that Musk's future ownership meant that she had sent her final tweet. He got Twitter, she mourned. He's buying it for free speech. It's going to become an even more lawless, hateful, xenophobic, bigoted, misogynistic space. But of course, these rank lefty hypocrites like Jamila have not deleted their accounts. She can't bear to be away from the attention of Twitter. And as I've said in a new column for Mail Online today, Twitter has become a liberal, authoritarian, bullying cesspit where debate goes to die. Elon Musk is the final hope to rescue free speech before the woke mind virus takes over big tech once and for all. So, Nigel, this reminded me today. Did you remember when all of the lefties, all of the Hollywood lefties, vowed to quit the US when Trump became president? And, of course, when he won, they didn't go anywhere.
No, you're right. I mean, they're going absolutely bonkers. But by the way, it's not just the West Coasters. It's just not, the lefties. Zach Goldsmith, Lord Goldsmith, a government minister, has expressed his deep worry that Elon Musk has bought Twitter, which tells you a fair bit about our current Conservative government. It is a brash, outrageous move. I was in the States this time last year, talking to some of the most powerful, and in some cases, some of the most wealthy people on earth about what do we do? What do we do? And they all said the same thing, to set up a new tech platform from scratch that can actually challenge the big boys would take not just money, but years. None of us in our wildest dreams thought this outrageous, audacious bid for Twitter would come from Elon Musk. It's potentially very good news, but it's not straightforward because he has got to drain the swamp of Twitter, and that is not going to be easy. A friend of mine spoke to a former senior exec in Europe of Twitter about me a couple of weeks ago. I won't use the words that were the expletive, should I say, that were used about me, which tells you all that you need to know. This platform, I was on Twitter early, very, very early. I recognised, as a politician, as I was then, the potential of this. Whilst, of course, the Oxbridge lot in Westminster, none of them understood it, none of them got it. And I managed to build it up to 1.7 million followers, which by UK standards is huge. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 years, I have made no progress. Zero. The tweets that I put out, the video clips that I put out, get roughly half the coverage they would get 3 or 4 years ago. Now, it could be, Dan, that I'm washed up, old, boring, dull.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
I'm prepared to accept it could be. Or it could be.
You know that's not true.
But it could be that the algorithm discriminates against people like me.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear. We talk about Donald Trump being banned, whilst the Taliban, the day they took over Kabul, was still on Twitter. But it's the shadow banning that has actually been even more sinister. And when you think, just last weekend, that Google are going to put a new feature on their product, which will try to amend our language to become more inclusive. Words like landlord could get some sort of a warning. You realize in the face of that, the sheer magnitude of what Musk is trying to do. How he's going to find the right people within the organization, I just don't know. But then this is a man that has moved the most enormous mountains already so far in his career. And I do think that this is a moment for joy. I genuinely think it really is a moment to think that the pendulum that has gone so far in the liberal, or sorry, should I say illiberal direction, this could be the moment that it swings back. It's a very exciting day.
Indeed, no, I think we absolutely have to celebrate it. Nigel, it was interesting because Trump has said over the past 24 hours, oh, no, I'm not going to go back onto Twitter even if I'm allowed, because he has his own Truth Social platform that he quite clearly and understandably wants to promote. But in reality, Nigel, if he's running for president, he can't turn down the opportunity to tweet again, can he?
Trump won the election through Twitter. Brexit was won through social media. And then the giants on the West Coast realized, oh my God, we've created this monster,
which we can't control.
To go round the back of mainstream media. We can't be doing with it. I'm certain Trump will be back on Twitter, connecting directly with tens of millions of people from 5:30 a.m. East Coast time every day, to the joy of many, to the horror of others. I wish him well, of course I do, with his Truth Social platform. But the fact is, for anyone to challenge the prominence and dominance of Twitter, of Facebook, of these giants, takes billions and takes many, many years. So I think Trump will be back, and our lives will be more interesting as a result of it.
No, indeed. And it's interesting because Elon Musk has actually clarified what he means by free speech today, Nigel. I think it's quite important to share it, actually, because, of course, there has been this completely extreme reaction to what he's saying. And essentially, he says the extreme antibody reaction for those who fear free speech says it all. By free speech, I simply mean that which matches the law. I am against censorship that goes far beyond the law. If people want less free speech, they will ask government to pass laws to that effect. Therefore, going beyond the law is contrary to the will of the people. So I have no idea, Nigel, what the left are getting their knickers in a twist over when it comes to this, because all Elon Musk is saying is that he no longer wants the big tech companies to be so powerful that they think they're above the law.
Well, they had a November 2020 American presidential election where social media, mainstream media, refused, and I mean refused, to report on the financial excesses of Hunter Biden, his relationships in Ukraine, his
and that was Twitter,
in Moscow, his relationships in Beijing, and Twitter, and all of them conspired to stop that becoming part of the national and international debate. And so the leftists are going nuts because they thought they'd sewn the whole thing up in perpetuity. And now, as always happens in the history of mankind, good fights back against evil. And free speech is something that the generations that went before us stood up, sacrificed so much to defend. In fact, for you, Dan, of course, yesterday was Anzac Day, a very, very important day for all New Zealanders, all Australians. And that was all about making sure we had free will, making sure we could be self-governing, making sure we could express rights of free speech. And that is how fundamental all of this is. And I must say, honestly, I was a bit slow to warm to Elon Musk, but I now think the guy's a hero.
Yeah, I agree. Nigel Farage, we've got an exciting few months ahead. Coming up, is David Cameron right to accuse Muslim groups who criticise the Prevent programme of enabling terrorism? My superstar panel return to debate that shortly in the Media Buzz. But next, as polls reveal Rishi Sunak is dead last among the cabinet, Darren Grimes will explain why we shouldn't count out the Chancellor yet in the outsider. That's straight after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up, but first, Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. And if Rishi Sunak thought his year couldn't get any worse, grassroots Tories have now ranked him bottom in a list of the most popular cabinet members, potentially leaving his leadership challenge in tatters. The poll from Conservative Home shows Rishi has lost his mojo as a hoodie-wearing housewife's favourite in the wake of his green card status and his wife's tax affairs. The Chancellor now has a support rating of minus 5.2% among the Tory faithful, the worst of any government minister, down from an astonishing 39% just 2 months ago. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace leads the pack thanks to his performance over Ukraine, while Liz Truss is also a big mover, up into second from fourth. Boris has slipped to third bottom ahead of Ben Elliott and Sunak. So as the media delights in having torn down Rishi, does this poll show his political career is over? Well, Darren Grimes thinks not, and he joins me now. I mean, Darren, this is obviously fascinating because all of the leadership contenders look very closely at the Conservative Home polling because it shows not what the wider public think, but what Tory members think. But you think there's a way for Rishi to turn this around?
Absolutely. I mean, the old adage 24 hours is a long time in politics, Dan. Well, 2 months is an absolute eternity, right? So Rishi Sunak is clearly not experiencing the same lofty political heights that he was orbiting not too long ago, especially during the pandemic when he was able to hand out cash like a bank. And that old line by Harold Macmillan of events, dear boy, events are what do it for politicians. I think actually Rishi Sunak has experienced, it's safe to say, 1 or 2 events over recent times. It's probably, I think, for viewers helpful to just remind us of what's actually gone on over recent times. because whilst Boris Johnson, it looked likely, I think 2 months ago, you revert back to that time, it looked likely that Boris Johnson was going to be on his way out, right? The 1922 committee were getting letters in there before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It looked like Rishi Sunak would be put into the top job faster than I don't know what, Dan. But politics ultimately changes faster than the lineup of sugar babes, doesn't it, as you well know? And I think it can be turned around. I think it can be turned around. Again, I say that, events, dear boy, events. Boris Johnson looked like he was on his way out. The Ukraine made him look like a statesman. I think Rishi Sunak, if he continues to actually take it seriously, the cost of living crisis, as he has, and he's saying to cabinet ministers, Dan, who are absolutely desperate for extra cash, he's saying, hang on a minute, we are spending more on debt interest repayments than we are on certain entire budgets of departments, of governmental departments. We haven't got the cash to be spending it recklessly on these trinkets that government ministers want to make themselves look good. I actually think, though, Rishi Sunak would be a great foreign secretary, and I think that might be what happens in the summer. There's going to be a summer reshuffle, often is. Boris Johnson's going to want to have a clear break from the Partygate and all the rest of it of the past. I know your viewers, Dan, are absolutely sick of hearing about Partygate, as am I. But I think he'll want a clear break. And
well, there's this rumour going around, isn't there, Darren, that potentially Boris could be a little bit strategic and actually move Liz Truss into number 11 to be his new Chancellor, hence potentially thwarting her future leadership ambitions, because he would obviously be putting her there right in the midst of a cost of living crisis. Is Boris really that strategic?
Oh, I think Boris Johnson absolutely is, Dan. You don't get to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland by not being a little bit of a schemer. I think Boris Johnson will absolutely try that. And I actually would go as far as to predict that. I mean, imagine being the Chancellor right now, where I mentioned all the constraints of debt repayments, the fact that if we borrow more, we've got to pay it back, and interest rates are going to have to go up, and all of these other things because to combat inflation. So if Liz Truss becomes Chancellor, she's very popular right now as Foreign Secretary, and before that as Trade Secretary. But if she has to make decisions that mean she is precluded from being a tax-cutting Tory, well, the membership that you mentioned, and that's who matters in the ultimate stakes of becoming Prime Minister. Well, she won't be very popular with a Tory base that is absolutely desperate, Dan, for tax cuts, for true blue Toryism that we just haven't experienced over recent.
Yeah, but maybe she would cut taxes, though. Maybe she would convince the Prime Minister to do so. But I agree. I actually think, and I agree with you, Darren, this would have been unthinkable a few months ago. I think it would actually be the right move for Rishi to move out of number 11 now, give him a chance to rehabilitate. Fascinating analysis. Darren Graham's back with Real Britain, Saturday, Sunday afternoons here on GBNews. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as a new report claims Prevent is being undermined by Islamist campaigners, is David Cameron right to accuse Muslim critics of the anti-terror programme of enabling terrorism? My superstar panel will tackle that crucial intervention from the former Prime Minister next. And tonight, I'm joined by former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. As the left's woke warriors desperately try to destroy Churchill's heroic reputation, why are only Western nations vilified for past outrages? Well, Douglas Murray will answer those questions in his new book, The War on the West. It's been described by the Daily Mail as the most important read of the year, and he'll reveal his findings on the woke mission to warp history live here at 10:20.
As Netflix sacrifices 200,000 subscribers on its woke content crusade, could we be witnessing the start of a renaissance for un-PC entertainment like this?
People that come to Yarmouth are salt of the earth. I think it's fantastic to come here. All the tattoos and people rolling their own fags. Brilliant. And then the blokes as well.
Third time I've seen that today, still laughing. Jim Davidson has launched a streaming service for the type of comedy it used to be okay to like, and he's here and uncancelled at 10:40. In the wake of the Angela Rayner Basic Instinct row, should MPs who are found guilty of misogyny be suspended, as proposed by Harriet Harman? Plus, we're going to give you a first glimpse of Tom Hiddleston as a raunchy priest in Essex, no less.
And their pastor.
So you can't be my friend and a man of God?
I can't think clearly when I'm around you.
I won't be blamed for your weakness.
Love is not a weakness.
All of that and more coming up in the Media Buzz at 10:30. And which wet woke-topian is in the running for tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass? Find out as I crown the winner just before the end of the show. So do stay with us this next hour. And don't forget too, we'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspapers throughout the show as well. But before all of that, with the latest news headlines at 10, Polly Middlehurst is back.
Dan, thank you. The headlines this hour. A man arrested on suspicion of the kidnap of Katie Kenyon has today been further arrested on suspicion of her murder. Lancashire police say although Katie has not yet been found, they're now working on the basis that she's no longer alive. The 33-year-old woman from Burnley hasn't been seen since last Friday morning. The US has welcomed Germany's decision to send heavy weapons to Ukraine for the first time. Speaking from an air base in Germany, the US Defence Secretary said NATO leaders will now meet monthly to intensify support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, here, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says it's important not to be distracted by Russia's nuclear threats and that she's determined to work with allies to rebuild Ukraine.
For too long, there was a false distinction between defensive and offensive weapons. It became an excuse for some to drag their feet. That time has now passed. NATO allies are clear that we are delivering heavy weapons to Ukraine. That's what the Ukrainians need to halt the latest Russian initiative and regain control of their territory.
Meanwhile, President Putin has agreed in principle to let the UN and the Red Cross be involved in the evacuation of civilians from the Azov-style plant in Ukraine's Mariupol. The United Nations released a statement after the Russian president met with the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres in Moscow. A senior government source says the Prime Minister has threatened to privatise the Passport Office unless it clears the backlog of applications. Boris Johnson is said to be horrified that families wanting to go on holiday are under pressure to pay up to £100 more to fast-track their applications because of the delays. The World Health Organization is warning the surge in hepatitis among 5-year-olds could be down to COVID restrictions. The body says 169 acute cases have been reported in 11 countries around the world. And in the UK, the Health Security Agency says 114 children in the UK have been diagnosed. 10 have needed a liver transplant. Experts say it could be that the virus was suppressed during lockdown. Downing Street has stressed the need for Twitter to remain responsible and protect users from harm. That comes as the platform's founder welcomes a £34.5 billion takeover of the company by the world's richest man, Elon Musk. The Tesla boss says he wants Twitter to be a platform for free speech. And finally, the tennis star Novak Djokovic will be able to defend his championship title at Wimbledon this year. That comes after the All England club confirmed players won't need to have had a COVID vaccine to compete. The world number one has only been able to play 3 tournaments so far this year due to the COVID restrictions. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Now more from Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. First front pages are in the Metro, lead with the cost of living crisis and the headline Crunch Time UK. There it is. 59% of people are now cutting back on the essentials, and the average food bill has risen by £271, believe it or not. On the front of the FT, Elon Musk may have a new addition to his portfolio. But could his £35 million Twitter purchase spell trouble for his electric car company Tesla? An eye-watering £90 billion has been wiped off the firm's stock value as investors prepare for the eccentric billionaire to sell a significant portion of his stock. Oh, it's worth it. Oh, it's worth it. It's more important for the world to have Elon Musk saving free speech on Twitter. My superstar panel back with me now, former editor at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the political editor at the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson. Now, David Cameron has accused Muslim groups who criticise the Prevent Counter-Terrorism programme of enabling terrorism. Writing in The Times, the former PM argued that we need to counter the anti-Prevent narrative as much as the Islamist extremist narrative, and said those who failed to challenge the falsehoods about Prevent were guilty of, quote, passive tolerance. He said the main allegation against the programme is that it unfairly targets Muslims, which is patently false. In 2020 to 2021, 46% of referrals to Prevent's Channel de-radicalisation programme were for far-right extremism, compared with just 22% for Islamist extremism. Now, Cameron's intervention comes before publication of a review of Prevent by the Policy Exchange think tank, with the scheme under serious scrutiny, quite rightly, for failing to stop terrorist attacks in recent years, including the murder of Sir David Amess. The think tank is calling on ministers to scrap government funding and partnerships with Muslim groups that it claims have campaigned to undermine Prevent by creating a grievance culture that has discouraged cooperation and encouragement. Now, personally, I usually think former PMs are best staying out of politics, but I'm actually going to make an exception for this because it's a crucial intervention here from David Cameron for our nation's security. We cannot allow our anti-terror strategy to be defeated by extremists who feign to fix the issue while actively encouraging it within their community by spreading pernicious lies. This review must be at the centre of a major and immediate overhaul of the Prevent programme. Urgent action is now required to avoid another tragedy. And Dawn Neeson, I fear that there's very few people who are actually prepared to stomach this discussion because they are immediately accused of Islamophobia. And so good on David Cameron for having the balls to do this today, because he didn't need to. He could have stepped back from this. He didn't need to do this.
I totally agree. I mean, I agree. I mean, sort of like we were having this conversation during the break. I mean, former prime ministers, they just never shut up most of the time, do they? But for once...
Are you thinking of a certain Mr Blair, Dawn?
Well, possibly. But, I mean, for once, I think this is an important subject, and we are all so scared of certain subjects now that we tiptoe around them when really we do need to talk about them. I mean, you know, Islamophobia and racism are accusations that are flung around way too easily now. I mean, obviously, Sir David Amess, and there was the youngsters killed on London Bridge, weren't there, by someone who had been through this programme. And it's a voluntary programme.
And managed to hoodwink the programme,
managed to hoodwink them. And the problem you've got, I mean, most ordinary Muslims in this country do not feel like this, but they're being put off by their communities from coming forward.
And the community should be desperate to stamp out terrorism.
Yeah, because it's reflecting very badly on the very community that everyone's scared of upsetting.
I know. Nigel Nelson, you don't think this intervention from David Cameron was helpful?
Well, no, I mean, I accept Prevent does some good stuff. An example would be that they spotted 100 children since 2015 who might have gone to Iraq or Syria. Courts intervened and stopped them going. So it's not as if they haven't done anything, but Prevent has got a lot of problems. It's been criticised by the UN. There's the Shawcross report going on about reforming it, which Priti Patel is waiting for before she actually does. So it's not absolutely perfect. So if you have organisations which say, we find something wrong with this, and they're making, and this is the key thing, constructive criticism about it, then you should actually listen to them and see if that can be accommodated.
Calvin Robinson, the problem that I have is that every time there's a failed terror attack, the media turn away from this issue, politicians turn away from this issue. We saw that with David Amess. They were more than happy to talk about online trolling and civility in politics and all of these issues that actually had nothing to do with the terror attack that killed David Amess. And actually, we need to have a national conversation about Prevent, because the problem is, in this case, one person was killed, and of course that is a great tragedy. But Calvin, we are so close. We are so close to another mass terror attack in this country. And are we only going to talk about it after, Calvin? Are we only going to talk about it when there's another 40 children bombed?
We won't talk about it.
Oh, we won't be honest now, absolutely.
Full disclosure, I am a senior fellow at Policy Exchange, but I'm not involved in this report. But I'm glad to see David Cameron endorsing it, because Prevent is supposed to highlight people who are at risk of radicalisation. So I don't know why anyone would be against that. And there aren't good criticisms against Prevent. What it is a grievance peddling industry, and he's right about that too. Islamism is a great threat to our way of life, great threat to our nation, and no one's willing to address it. None of our politicians are willing to stand up and say, this is a problem we need to solve, not just in cases of terrorism, in case of the Muslim rape gangs in Rotherham and problems like that. We sweep them under the rug because it's too controversial to discuss. So thank you for bringing it up today.
Nigel, do you want to respond?
Yeah, just to say, I mean, I think that Rotherham, you're absolutely right, that one of the reasons that Rotherham kept going on was because everyone was terrified of being a racist.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely
when
right.
When several dads went to the police and said, I'm worried about my daughter, what's happening, they were accused of being racist.
Exactly.
Rape should trump racism, surely. Even
of course it should. Of course it should. And what happened there was unforgivable. Yeah. I think that when we come to the issue of terrorism, a number of problems. As I said, Prevent doesn't work at least as well as it should. It needs reforming. The second thing is we need to do more about supplying MI5 with the resources to go and chase the terrorists at the other end of the scale. And at the moment, the system is they can really only keep 3,000 on their books. There are probably 30,000 people out there who would like to do us harm. So when another one goes on to be looked at by MI5, somebody else has to drop off. And that's why so many people have been lost along the way.
I know. Well, the problem is I just don't think we can keep waiting. This review has been going on for years, and I think...
This is why we need to look at our immigration policy and be stricter on these things.
Indeed. Now, I've got two love stories to bring you today, but be warned, this first one might make you feel a little bit queasy. The Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, your favourite Calvin, he's long been inflicting his COVID campaigns of terror. And it turns out even his poor wife isn't exempt from a muzzling. Look at this, Trudeau.
Look at them.
Tweeted.
Pure virtue signal.
Sickeningly loved up and masked up photo shoot yesterday to wish his wife Sophie a happy birthday, because after all, nothing says romance, right? Like covering up your partner's face. Oh. What a depressing case of COVID theatre. I don't even want to know.
Is that the living room? I mean, who has that in the living room?
I don't even want to know, Dawn. But anyway, over in the real world, it's full steam ahead for one of our young couples who became engaged at the unlikely venue of Euston Station in London. So for Nirmal Chauhan and Vidya Patel, Euston held a very special place in their hearts after they had successfully managed a long-distance relationship between London and Birmingham. That's hard, by the way, for over 7 years. What? And if that wasn't romantic enough, look at this. Boyfriend Nirmal arranged for the departure boards to flash up with a special tribute and secretly invited their families to watch from the balcony above. Look. So I'm pretty sure she said yes.
I was going to say, did she say no?
I think so, Dawn. Dawn, I hope their relationship stays on the rails.
Oh,
Oh, no.
Doesn't hit the buffers.
Euston Station is hell on earth, but marriage should always be celebrated. That's fantastic to see.
Wootton, Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Nigel Nelson. Do stand by, because coming up, my superstar panel return, because in the wake of the Angela Rayner Basic Instinct row, we're asking whether MPs who are found guilty of misogyny should be suspended, as proposed by Harriet Harman. That's coming up. But next, as the left's woke warriors desperately try to destroy Churchill's heroic reputation, why are only Western nations vilified for past outrages? Well, Douglas Murray answers these questions in his brilliant new book, The War on the West. It's been described as the most important tome of the year, and he'll reveal his findings on the woke mission to warp history immediately after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Douglas Murray's latest must-read book has been called the most important of the year, but that's to be expected with the British commentator now firmly established as one of the most significant writers of our time. The War on the West, How to Prevail in the Age of Unreason, is his latest assault on the parasitic woke culture threatening our way of life, as he implores us to take pride in our history. So, Douglas valiantly defends the West from its detractors and examines how Western civilization's greatest achievements, from medicine to science and to culture and free thinking, are actually being erased from history as the product of dead white males. And one of those dead white males, a hostile term dreamed up by the intolerant left, is a certain Winston Churchill, who has been dishonestly smeared because, despite heroically defeating Hitler and fascism, he was a dead old white male. And Douglas, congratulations on the book. While you were writing it, what did you discover about why these woke warriors on the left are so desperate to destroy Churchill in particular?
Well, that's a very good question, Dan. I look at the lies they've been telling about, and I take them apart one by one. And I think everybody in Britain needs to know about these lies, because they are so invidious, they are so unfair, they are so filled with untruths. 20 years ago, the BBC ran a Greatest Britons poll. And if you remember, we voted overwhelmingly to make Winston Churchill, name him as our greatest Briton. And it's hardly surprising. We have a lot of great heroes in Britain, but Churchill must count as among the greatest of the lot. So I was amazed in recent years to see this reputation starting to be assaulted and then finally overturned. Nowadays, when the BBC runs any news story about Winston Churchill, you always get these 10 things that he did wrong. He's accused of racism. He's accused of all sorts of things. He's accused of having values of the Victorian era, which, since he was born in the Victorian era, shouldn't be that much of a surprise to anyone. Amazingly enough, not all of Churchill's beliefs were what we believe in 2022. Amazing, that, isn't it? But one of the things I kept coming to was, why did it become so vicious? Why, by 2020, with the BLM protests in London, was Churchill's statue so often assaulted, more often than the cenotaph, more often than any other memorial? Why was it so often assaulted? Why did it end up having to be boxed up in a steel box? Because there is a war going on against everything in our history and in our culture in the United Kingdom and across the wider West. It is a massive campaign that has been growing for years and has sped up in the last few years. It is a war that intends to take out our heroes. It's not an accident that they've come for Churchill. It's absolutely central, because the activists of the far left, the Marxists and others all know that if you take out Churchill, you take out Britishness. If you destroy our holy places, you destroy our place. It's the same in America, where the same people have been trying to tear down Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers. It's the same in Canada. It's the same in Australia, as you know. It's the same story everywhere. And this has a historic precedent. If you want to carry out a cultural revolution, as is being attempted on Britain at the moment and the wider West, you have to make sure that you desecrate our holy places. You tear down our monuments. You replace them with your own gods. You destroy the temples of the West in order that the peoples of the West know that they are totally subjugated and have to hand themselves over to whoever it is who plans to run the place afterwards. It's very deliberate, very concerted, and everybody in Britain needs to know how to fight back against this.
But Douglas, what your book makes so clear, and one of the things that is so disturbing, is that much of this attempt to erase our history actually comes from within formerly great British institutions.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are lots of forms of anti-Westernism that I could write about. There's Arab anti-Westernism, Russian anti-Westernism, Chinese anti-Westernism. But what I'm interested in is Western anti-Westernism. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why would any culture do this to ourselves? And now, in Britain in particular, the only country worse is America. In Britain in particular, every one of our institutions is waging war on our own culture. Take any institution. The Globe Theatre in London seeks to decolonize Shakespeare. One of its experts recently described Shakespeare's language as all over the place, because she accused it of racism, because amazingly Shakespeare uses terms like light and darkness. So the Globe Theatre decolonizes Shakespeare. The British Library publishes a incredibly cack-handed list of British authors who are dead, who are tainted with slavery. This included Ted Hughes, the late poet laureate, who was born in the 1930s into a very poor background in Yorkshire and never benefited anything from slavery, which took place centuries before his birth. They smeared the late poet laureate and distinguished poet Ted Hughes for something he had no connection with. Look at the Tate Gallery in London, which has closed up a room with one of the greatest murals in London by Rex Whistler, painted by the Tate. They've smeared Rex Whistler, who died on his first day in action in 1944 fighting the Nazis. They've smeared him at Tate Britain, one of their own artists, as a racist because of one detail in a mural which has nothing to do with racism. They've smeared one of their paintings by Stanley Spencer, one of the great paintings of the National Collection, The Resurrection at Cookham. They've accused Stanley Spencer of racism in their own collection. You look at Kew Gardens, which has sought to decolonize the gardens because gardens are racist, because lawns are racist. We've got the National Trust that believes that the buildings that they're meant to be looking after are actually the products of racism and colonialism and slavery. What I'm trying to urge onto you is the fact that everything Everything from government departments to all the people who are meant to be the custodians of our culture have turned on our culture. They have turned on the British people and our past.
I couldn't agree more. So what do we do, Douglas? How do folk watching and getting as angry as I am hearing that beautifully put list of completely shocking examples, what do we do? How do we fight back against this?
Firstly, educate ourselves. One of the purposes of the war on the West is to give people the ammunition they need to push back against these people. The people making these claims are utterly and repeatedly ignorant. They know nothing about our past, even as they are busy defaming it. They call everybody a racist. They think everybody in Britain is tainted with racism, slavery, colonialism, and much more. So it's time to say no. No. I and you are guilty of nothing. We have no responsibility for slavery. We have no responsibility for colonialism. We are not a racist society. We are none of these things that we are accused of. None of it. It is deeply, deeply racist in itself to claim that everybody in Britain, by some hereditary taint, has to pay for a past we had nothing to do with. At the same time, we have to remind people that there is not just a history of shame in the United Kingdom. There is not just a story. Racism is part of the story of Britain, as sadly it's a story of every country and nation and peoples in the world. But it isn't our story. Slavery is a part of our story, but it isn't our story. Colonialism is a part of our story, but it isn't our story. So we have to simultaneously say not only that, no, we will not be made into these cowed, beaten up people who have to cringe our way through lives. We will not only not be that, we will be allowed to be proud of what is great about our nation now and what has been in the past. And here's the evidence of why. Britain is one of the countries in the world, the top 5 repeatedly, that people in the world want to come to. Repeatedly. There are no boats leaving the south coast of England trying to flee to the continent and from there into Africa. There are no movements of people from America trying to smuggle their way to Central America. America, Britain, Canada, and other countries of the West are the countries that the world wants to come through. So this is my point. It's not just that we're good now. It's that, and the football proves that, it's that in order that we are good now, we must have done something right in the past. We aren't just lucky in our society. As a famous American sports player put it once, luck is the residue of design. We in Britain are not just lucky by happenstance or coincidence. We are lucky because people before us did good things. Great men and women did great things. And it would be the biggest disgrace imaginable if this generation decided to turn on all those people and dismiss that luck and dismiss those people and pretend that we're better than them. And that is what is going on in Britain on a daily basis. One final example, if I may. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London 2 years ago, set up a commission, a Robespierrean-titled commission on looking into diversity in the public realm. It aspires to tell us what in our history in London we are allowed to keep up, what things need to be pulled down. Everybody on the commission is an anti-British person in one way or another. One of its members famously screamed at the Queen a few years ago in Westminster Abbey. Every single member of the commission is hostile to our history and to this country. They have no damn right to tell us what we are allowed to have up. And they have no damn right to tell us what we should put up in its place. And the current ideas they have to put up in its place are, oh, wait for it, things like a national slavery museum. They want to rewrite our history from a history of pride into a history of shame. I don't believe they can do it, and I'll tell you very quickly why. No minority group would put up with being talked to and about in this term. No minority group would agree that they are wicked from the cradle to the grave and everyone before them was wicked and they have nothing to be proud of. No minority group would agree to that. So here's the thing. The majority wouldn't and shouldn't put up with it either. No. We are the majority. The people who want to destroy our past are the minority. So they're the ones who should lose. They're the ones who have to have this fight taken to them. They're the ones we clear out of the way. They are not the ones to stand judge over you, me, anyone else, let alone the people of our past, let alone Winston Churchill or any of our other heroes.
I am shaken, I am stirred, and I am inspired by that. Douglas Murray, thank you so much. And Douglas's latest must-read book, The War on the West, How to Prevail in the Age of Unreason, is published on Thursday. Brilliant words. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, while Netflix sacrifices 200,000 subscribers on its woke content crusade, Jim Davidson has launched a streaming service for the un-PC comedy people still love. He's here Uncancelled at 10:40. But next, in the wake of the Angela Rayner Basic Instinct row, should MPs who are found guilty of misogyny be suspended as proposed by Harriet Harman, my superstar panel? Return to debate that straight after break. More front pages on the way too.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
More of tomorrow's news tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages in. Let's take a look. The Daily Telegraph leads on Sunak, Rishi Sunak, facing cabinet pressure to tackle the cost of living crisis. The embattled Chancellor was urged by ministers to reduce the cost of services such as childcare after official figures revealed record high tax receipts for the Treasury. The Eye also leading with worsening cost of living crisis and report that annual MOTs are facing the axe to battle the crisis. According to the paper, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has suggested changing the rules so tests happen every other year to cut costs to motorists. Ministers are also reportedly looking at raising the limit on the maximum number of children a childminder can care for to lower the average cost of childcare. The no-cost proposals come after Rishi has continued to refuse to fund any more cost of living support this summer. The Sun leading with an exclusive in the Madeleine McCann case, alleging that the latest suspect has provided no alibi to police. So Christian Bruckner, a convicted rapist, reportedly told a US documentary that he was elsewhere when Maddie was snatched in Portugal back in 2007. But a German prosecutor has told the publication they were not aware of any such alibi. Also on the front page, news that Madonna, aged 63, has dumped her 28-year-old toy boy, Alama Lick Williams, after 3 years together. On the front of the Times, Russia threatens strikes against Western targets. The Kremlin has warned it is prepared to retaliate as British support for attacks on Russian territory risks escalating the conflict outside Ukraine's border.
And the Daily Mirror features the heartwarming story of Frances Connolly, the gran who has already given away half of her £115 million lottery jackpot and has so far this year given away another 11 million to those in need. I've got to change people's lives. I'm addicted to it, she said. What a wonderful woman. We're on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. Our very own wonderful women tonight. Former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson and the political editor at the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson. Now, Labour Deputy Angela Rayner has opened up for the first time about the aftermath of the Basic Instinct controversy, having previously branded the Mail on Sunday article an example of the daily, quote, sexism and misogyny women face in politics. And because this was Labour, she couldn't resist a dig at Boris Johnson, of course.
Felt really fearful of the story coming out, thinking that's what people will think of me. And then actually, the response from the public, from all political parties, from leadership across the whole political spectrum has been to condemn it. And I think that's heartened me, because I thought, is this what the public want to read? Is this what the public are going to think of me? You know, it wasn't just about me as a woman saying that I was using the fact that I'm a woman against the Prime Minister, which I think is quite condescending to the Prime Minister as well, and shows you what his MPs think about his behaviour. But it was also about, it was steeped in classism as well. I consciously today felt that I wanted to put some trousers on today so that people didn't think that I wanted to be defiant as well, because I don't think that women should be told how to dress, but I didn't want to distract from the fact that actually it's not about my legs.
The party's leader, Keir Starmer, also spoke out, calling for a significant cultural change in Parliament.
This is just disgusting, rank sexism, rank misogyny. And it's not just Angela that faces this, lots of women in politics too, and that's why obviously we need to call out anybody involved in this. But we need a culture change as well. You know, this is awful for Angela. She's described the impact that she worries it will have on her own children. I've got a young girl and I worry about her seeing this environment. We all have to change it.
Their messages, however, were completely undermined by this tweet by fellow Labour MP Diane Abbott. She posted a picture of the journalist, who, by the way, is a very good, very credible journalist with a strong reputation that I would defend. She posted a picture of him with the comment, interesting that he feels entitled to judge female MPs by their looks. That, folks, is how you lose the moral high ground in less than 280 characters. Total hypocrisy there from Labour, and yet another flub by a politician better known for her long legacy of gaffes than her policies, which I hope I can say without being accused of sexism. Regardless, the controversy has spurred Parliament's most senior female MP, Labour's Harriet Harman, to call for misogyny to be made an offence punishable with suspension from the House of Commons, stating that the PM needs to start taking action against the MP who allegedly made the remark, which he very much has promised to unleash the terrors of earth on. The Mother of the House pitched for misogynistic, homophobic and racist language to become a specific breach of the MP's code of conduct. Now, that breach would allow for an inquiry by the Common Standards Commission and potentially force a humiliating apology on the floor, or a suspension which, if it were to last for more than 10 days, could actually trigger a recall permission to remove the MP from office. Calvin Robinson.
Yeah.
Look, this was one article in a newspaper where a highly respected political editor, who is a very good journalist, quoted anonymously an MP who made a comment. Now, look, we might think it's a silly comment, but we've gone mad. We've gone completely and utterly stark raving mad. The Speaker of the House is demanding that this editor has to come into the Commons and sort of meet with him and somehow justify what he's published. I mean, I think this is actually hysteria now.
Of course it's hysteria. Let's break down what she said. I don't think women should be told how to dress. Now, she's making it about her gender. That's identity politics. It's not because she was a woman, and first of all, no one told her how to dress, but everyone within the Houses of Parliament is told how to dress. There are sartorial standards. People have, men have to wear a suit and tie, or at least they did before those standards got dropped. Standards are slipping.
And people are always commenting on how terrible Boris looks, though.
They'll comment on how
all the time.
Looks. But I think she was inappropriately dressed. I do. I've seen photographs of too much of her that I don't want to see as a member of the British public. So she was inappropriately dressed for the Houses of Parliament.
Dawn, you're not happy with that comment?
It's not because she's a woman. She was inappropriately dressed. If Boris went on there in shorts and sandals, I'd say he was inappropriately dressed.
So it's not about his sex. Calvin, how is that inappropriate?
The slit of the skirt went far too up.
That was one unfortunate shot where she was wearing a wraparound dress.
Then she should have dressed more appropriately then.
She was wearing a wraparound dress.
If we saw
unfortunate camera angle.
If we saw parts of her that we did not want to see, it tells me that she wasn't dressed appropriately for the place that she was in.
It was just an unfortunate camera. She was wearing an ordinary wraparound dress. There was nothing wrong with the way Angela Rayner dresses. And I think there's a lot of fuss over this, and I think it is going... And editors being called in to be questioned over this makes me very, very nervous about where we're going with our freedom of the press, etc., etc. However, if we actually, as has been suggested, sort of like suspended every man who was a sexist in Parliament, there wouldn't be any blokes in there. I'm sorry, and the hypocrisy I'm hearing from an awful lot of MPs on Angela Rayner's side. The only time I've ever had an MP put his hand on my knee was a Labour Party MP. And I'm afraid I went a bit Will Smith on him. But, I mean, it was a while ago, you know. It was a while ago. I was much younger.
So what, an MP put his hand on your knee inappropriately?
Yeah, just literally like that. Sorry.
Was he a high-profile MP?
He was, yes, at the time.
Who was it?
I can't say. It was a long time ago, and it doesn't
Is he still in Parliament?
Well, he might still be in hospital for all I know. But, I mean, you know, the thing is that the hypocrisy of all the men this weekend that have been mansplaining to me about how I should be terribly upset about misogyny and what misogyny means. And it's like, you're the very definition of what you're supposedly arguing about.
Nigel Nelson, you're a Sunday political editor too. I'm sure you probably disagreed with the story. Most people seem to. But are you concerned by this concept that if you wrote something that the Speaker of the House didn't like, he could summon your editor in?
I've been through it. I was actually suspended from the Commons by Betty Boothroyd, a previous Speaker, some years ago, but she didn't like something I'd written.
What did you write?
It was to do with MPs getting booby-trapped mail.
Booby.
I'm
not sure you can say that.
And she objected to it. We had a load of run-ins before this had happened, and I was a frequent guest with the Sergeant-at-Arms, where when you're being ticked off with a man wearing tights and a sword, it's a real experience.
So you think this is just par for the course?
No, it's not, because in fact what's happened since is this present Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, he's used me as an example of what he would not do in the future. He would not expel a journalist from Parliament for something they've written. Bad behaviour would be a different thing, but not for something they've written.
Exactly.
So what happens tomorrow?
Not his job to judge whether a newspaper has written something tasteless.
Well, actually, in fact, it is that the Speaker, as far as for Glenn, for myself, for journalists who work there, for everybody in the House of Commons, he's our boss. He has absolute power in the House of Commons.
But he doesn't have power over the editor of the newspaper, and it's the editor of the newspaper who decides whether your words are published.
Well, he can call a newspaper editor in, and that newspaper editor has to come. It would be a contempt of Parliament if he didn't.
Well, I think it's chilling. I think it's chilling.
I do think
but if you have a gentle chat with him, and what will happen tomorrow is that the Speaker will have a gentle chat with the editor will explain himself. I hope the whole thing will be over by tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I don't think it should happen. No. Now, move aside Bridgerton. There's a new bodice ripper in town. The trailer for Apple TV's new period drama, The Essex Serpent, has finally landed, and it sees Tom Hiddleston and the brilliant Homeland actress Claire Danes. Have to say she's one of my faves. Star as unlikely friends who unite when townspeople become convinced sorry, this sounds crap, though, that a mythical serpent is stalking them. Look.
There's something out there. That's what I'm here to find out. I've done some research.
Into a mythical beast?
Not mythical, real. I want you to come back.
Sounds like you're in love with her.
Everyone else is. I scared them.
You didn't start all this. We can't control our inner thoughts, but they can influence us.
It was woman that was tempted by the serpent. It was woman that ate the fruit. Evil.
You let them accuse me. You said nothing.
I'm their pastor.
So you can't be my friend and a man of God.
I can't think clearly when I'm around you.
I won't be blamed for your weakness.
Love is not a weakness.
Don't like the look of it. I'll give it a go, though, because Claire Danes in Homeland, oh, wow.
one of the greatest TV series of all time. Now, coming up, the crowning moment of the show as my superstar panel return to nominate for today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But next up, as Netflix loses 200,000 subscribers, could this be the start of a renaissance for un-PC entertainment? Jim Davidson uncancelled straight after we look at what's coming up tomorrow.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, US broadcasting icon Megyn Kelly returns to break down the biggest stateside headlines, and Brendan O'Neill and Rod Liddle give their takes on the stories leading the news agenda. Plus, I'll be joined all night by my superstar panel, including one of the most celebrated British political journalists of our time, John Sargent, who'll be joined by Star Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GBNews.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. As Netflix loses 200,000 subscribers over its deluge of lame liberal content, I'm joined tonight by one man who has been pushing the boundaries of comedy for nearly 50 years to the great displeasure of his perpetually offended critics.
Young people that are in or watching jokes are what grown-ups laugh at. People that come to Yarmouth are salt of the earth. I think it's fantastic to come here, all the tattoos and people rolling their own fags, brilliant. And then the blokes as well.
Jim Davidson has become enemy number one for woke-crazed theatre bosses and television broadcasters who decided almost overnight that his comedy was not fit for public viewing. But despite the cancel culture mob baying for his blood, unfazed, Jim swatted away the joyless cretins and started his own streaming platform, Ustream, that focuses on the comedy people used to love. So, Jim, with Netflix going woke and maybe even going broke, you know, could this maybe be the start of a renaissance for un-PC entertainment?
Well, Dan, you know, that's the word round the campfire, that people are getting sick of it. And it's people listening to what you say, make them think, hang on, we're being duped here. We're being taken down the river by these the they people who say you can't do this, you can't do that. And Netflix scratch their head and wonder why they're losing, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers, because they're putting stuff on. They're just piling it all on, hoping that there's something for everybody. My channel is something for the people I know want to laugh like they used to. And it's great. Year one, we've had 10,000 subscribers through the door. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're signing up Jethro's old stuff, Freddie Starr's old stuff, all the things that we used to laugh at. But you don't have to laugh at them behind closed doors. You don't have to say, here, I've got a little something under the counter for you, my son. Here's Chubby Brown. No, that's all gone. They watch Ustream instead.
Because, Jim, I think what I'm sick of is just wanting to be entertained and feeling like I'm being force-fed a woke diet of how I'm meant to think. It's like, I just want entertainment. I don't want Disney or Netflix or Amazon or Apple. I don't want them to tell me how I should think.
Well, Dan, it's $3.99 a month, and you can have a VIP pass.
Do I get a free membership? No, I'll pay. I'll pay.
Plus VAT. No, I fully understand. You know, when I work live, I see an audience rocking with laughter. And now when I do my television stuff or I'm producing other shows that we're making, I want to try and get that same effect. We don't want to, it's not a university lecture. Comedy is about making people laugh and, you know, making their side split. And you know, the streaming channels, there's lots of streaming channels about, but we're a niche. I have a niche. Yes, and it's her birthday today, and my nephew. But it's... I should stick to the dirty joke, really, shouldn't I? But I think it's because that we are aiming for a niche audience, that people that are basically being forgotten, people that want to laugh like they used to.
No, and I get it, but Jim, tell me about your experience of being cancelled effectively by the London metropolitan elite who, let's be honest, they decide what TV programmes are made. What was that experience like, and how did it happen? How did you sort of realise, oh my goodness, they've cancelled me?
Well, you get the odd theatre that cancels you because it's whatever the council is. Let's see if it's a real lefty Labour council. Oh, we don't want that, Jim Davidson here. The worst I've ever been cancelled was from the BBC with the Generation Game. I was on every Saturday night. I did Big Break and the Generation Game. And then along came the BBC and said, look, we don't want to make another series of you. Thank you very much. You're an awful Tory voting person, working class. We don't really need you here. And they gave me £1 million to go away. And so I used some of that £1 million to make my own TV station so I don't have to worry about the BBC anymore. But being cancelled by some unknown person in an office because they are upset about something they heard you do is awful. Not just for me, but for everybody. It's all hearsay. Oh, someone in the office said that this and that, oh, we better just cancel.
Yeah, because they're too scared.
I'm never going to have a statue, am I?
That they're too scared to have to potentially deal with any backlash. And it's like, the whole point of comedy is to be shocked. I mean, I just find it so depressing. And Jim, I don't know if you've checked out much BBC comedy lately, but it's dire. It's not even funny because it's so woke. I mean, even Ricky Gervais, I don't think, Jim, could survive anymore at the BBC because they would censor him.
Wouldn't you just love to see him on there live?
Oh, yeah, I would.
It'd be great. Talk about the cat. We could do a double act, the pair of us, wouldn't that? He actually said to me, I was with him up in Edinburgh, and he said to me, Jim, I'm in terrible trouble. I said, what's up? He said, I think I'm turning into you.
Genuine worry, though. It's a genuine worry when comedians are cancelled because you're not meant to be taken seriously. I don't mean that in a bad way. The whole point is for you to make us laugh and to say things that are going to shock and at times horrify, Jim, which you have a track record of doing, but that's why we love you.
Well, thanks very much, Dan. Unfortunately, you get cancelled because of a political statement. People want to say, look how good I am. We're not going near that or those awful comedians. We like the Nish Kumars of this world that sort of do a lecture as opposed to being, I know.
The least funny man on planet Earth. I mean, Jim, I think I've got to take you to training standards for even describing him as a comedian, to be honest. But Jim Davidson, you are always uncancelled here on Dan Wootton Tonight. Great to talk to you, Jim.
Love you, Dan.
Thank you.
Always will. Always have.
But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. My superstar panel back in the house. Dawn Neeson, your nominee for Greatest Briton.
Calvin is going to hate me. I'm going to nominate Angela Rayner.
Oh, my God.
Because she's a working class girl who's made it to the top.
Oh, she never stops telling us about it.
I don't care. And made it to the top in a male-dominated environment. Go, girl.
Oh, look, I've just been told, Dawn, in relation to this, the Daily Mail has actually come out. I haven't seen it yet. Oh, there it is. A defiant front page on the issue. And they say, with an overreach that startled MPs, the Commons Speaker summoned the Mail on Sunday's editor to appear before him over its Angela Rayner Basic Instinct report, to which, in the name of a free press, the Mail respectfully replies, no, Mr. Speaker.
Love it.
Amen. Amen. That is brilliant news. Nigel, you say they might be in contempt, but who cares? They're going for it. I told you they shouldn't go. OK, who's your Greatest Britain nominee, Calvin?
Priti Patel for the Rwanda plan, because it's already bearing fruit. For the last few days, we've seen 0 boats crossing the channel illegally. People said it wouldn't be a deterrent. It already is.
And Nigel Nelson, your Greatest Britain.
Yeah, mine is the Exports Minister, Tracy Crouch, who's finally persuaded ministers that football needs a regulator. And that comes on top of the fact that she also was able to get rid of addictive gambling machines. So huge successes both ways.
Good nominee, and Tracy Crouch is today's Greatest Britain. Union Jackass time now. Dawn, your nominee.
Oh, the BMA, who, at the conference coming up, GPs are going to vote on cutting their working hours down till 9 till 5. Meanwhile, there's 6.2 million of us on the NHS waiting list, and I haven't seen a GP for 2 years.
Calvin Robinson, your Union Jackass nominee.
Jamila Jamil and all the other wet liberals who are in absolute tears quitting Twitter because there might be freedom of expression on there. They don't want their truths challenged. They don't want free speech. They call themselves liberals. They're not.
And Nigel Nelson, your Union Jackass nominee.
Calvin will like this. This is Priti Patel.
Oh, you're at loggerheads.
And this is a failure to see that 5 million passport renewals were building up. As a result, if you apply for one now, you won't be able to travel until July. She's a jackass for not being able to see that one coming.
Well, this is why working from home needs to stop, I say, in the civil service. But I'm going to go with Calvin on this. Union Jackass, it's got to be Jamil. I mean, get off Twitter and it's going to immediately improve, but the only person you're punishing, love, is yourself, because we're not going to hear any more of your ridiculous woke rants anymore, thank goodness. Nigel Nelson, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson, my fabulous superstar panel, and thank you so much for your company today. I'm back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Remember, Headliners is next. Good night.
Hello again. Clearing skies overnight will lead to a touch of frost in some places, but after that chilly start, actually Wednesday's looking mostly dry and bright once again, because high pressure is here and it's here to stay for some time. It's building in from the north. Now that means, because winds rotate around high pressure in a clockwise direction, we're seeing an easterly airflow, but actually the isobars are opening out at the same time, so those winds are falling lighter, and we're going to see the cloud mostly fade away overnight. Still some patches remaining, drifting south across the Midlands, East Anglia in the southeast, some across western Scotland. But where we see those clear spells for, say, northern England, for much of Scotland, some sheltered spots will get just below freezing. Otherwise, typical numbers first thing Wednesday morning will be 4 to 7 degrees. So chilly start, that frost around first thing, but quite quickly it'll warm up. The sun will get to work. And it's looking much sunnier for northern and eastern England, for much of eastern Scotland compared to Tuesday. It's still going to feel on the cool side, particularly on the east coast with the breeze coming from the North Sea. But I think with a lighter wind and with more sunshine, it's going to feel pleasant enough. 15 or 16 in the south, 8 to 9 on the east coast of Scotland and eastern England. Now into Wednesday nights, more lengthy clear spells and lighter winds again. So I think a more widespread frost, still in places like Cardiff, London, Southampton, 6 or 7 degrees. But in sheltered spots away from urban centres, those temperatures getting close to, if not below freezing. So a frost on Thursday morning, but another dry and bright start to the day. Another fine day for the vast majority. Just some rain drifting past the Northern Isles there. Otherwise, for much of the country, it's sunny spells, some cloud floating by. And for Friday, a bit more cloud in the sky, but Saturday the sunshine returns, particularly in the southern half of the UK.